in the middle lane. I want to see them get Nisqy on something confident and comfortable where he can have a strong performance against considered to be the best mid laner by many other mid laners here in Europe.
Does Nisqy even win the matchup, even if he has a winning lane? Rise, Kog'Maw banned here by Splyce, Skarner, and Kalista by Schalke. And Schalke don't just have the single carry in NukeDuck, you've also got Upset there, who dominated Challenger Series when he was playing for them, who's one of the mainstays of this team. You've got Xerxe in the top lane, who has so consistently been a strong performer. It's a Vel'Koz ban finally here from Schalke, and Splyce now have to work out exactly how to respond to that, because it's not a ban we commonly see.
Now, the thing about the Vel'Koz is, in my head, it's either support or mid. If it's mid, that means that it's being banned away from Nisqy because Schalke want to get themselves an early Azir. After seeing Rise banned away, that champion suddenly rises in priority and gives NukeDuck a priority pick. I'm sure I did something funny there.
Rise rises in priority.
Ah ha ha ha. So there's the hover over the Azir, very much what we expected, and it is because they recognize Vel'Koz as a counter. Alternatively, it could have been directed towards Kasing. We know that he does have a few interesting and unique support champions. We did hear him discuss how Xerxe may be a support pick that we see in the bottom lane, but instead it has primarily been those melee supports.
So how does Splyce then respond to it? You say you want to see Nisqy in a winning matchup. The Azir is a matchup that doesn't tend to lose out to too many other mid laners.
It is certainly a challenge. When you look at many of the other strong mid laners, you could go for, oh, okay, he's already locked in the Veigar, so he's going to emulate Betsy. We saw it come out yesterday, and during the laning phase, Veigar kind of sucks, right? He doesn't have wave clear, he doesn't really exert a lot of pressure, he honestly doesn't do a lot. Veigar's true value comes in the mid to late game. He can scale exceptionally well, and the thing is, Azir as a champion has a very short range, so Veigar is very good at punishing it because of the event horizon, how easily you can zone him from fights, or if he ever tries to come in with the Shurima Shuffle.
And alongside that, you have the Zac if you want to look towards that mid lane. We've seen Zac ganks being incredibly effective in the past. Pride is going to get his Jarvan once again. Has a 100% win record on that, going James Bond 007 the last time he played it. Now, Schalke have their final pick of this first phase, Vedius.
Tahm Kench is still up and available, but Schalke could go for a blind Braum instead. I don't want to really take the credit for that because I feel like that's one of the easiest predictions a color caster can make.
You got it right, we give you credit, Vedius. That's the way it works. Good job, my man. Now Splyce with their final pick. This is a slightly harder prediction.
I would imagine it would just be a Braum. They could go for a blind AD carry now. Something like the Ezreal is something that is still strong on the current patch. Caitlyn as well, safe in terms of the laning phase, but this will allow Schalke to ban away some of the possible counters to the Tahm Kench in the form of, I would imagine, a Braum and a Janna.
Have to see if the Janna is removed. Kasing was very well known for that the last time he was in the EU LCS and through his Challenger days, but Splyce can narrow that AD carry pool a little bit. Upset tends to play towards the hyper carries. Kog'Maw, Tristana, Twitch as well is something we've seen him play before.
That's why those bans are heading in that general direction. Varus, I think, is a pretty strong AD carry that will do fine into the Caitlyn. Wouldn't be surprised if Splyce tried to ban that one away, unless, given that the Kog'Maw and Trist are already taken off the board. Looking at other possible AD carries that could be taken away. Sivir is one that we've actually seen a decent amount, but no, Splyce is saying, you know what, we'll leave the Varus open, we'll give you an option to play. Vander demonstrated his prowess on the champion last week when he was subbing in for Upset. Let's see what Upset can potentially do on the champion, which is very much what I expect.
There is the Braum Janna bando from Schalke. Good call on that, Vedius. Splyce, they're not going to go for another AD carry here. They're just showing Upset his possibilities. It's like a smorgasbord of options. It's like, hello, you can get this. You could have a cheeky little Ezreal in the lane. You could have a Janna. You could have whatever you want. It's going to be an Ornn for Odoamne.
Now, do they go for the allowing? Xerxe, does he try and go for the counter? Will he go for the gamble, or will he just pick another tank himself? Something like a Cho'Gath would be fine here. Gangplank would also work as an answer to the Ornn, get a healthy amount of farm. Maybe he chooses to go a little bit more aggressive. We did see a Jax already earlier in the day. I'd be surprised if that came out in the top lane. I feel like Gangplank is the safest option here from Schalke.
It's the Varus that you called as well, so have to see if Upset and Vander can work that Varus Tahm Kench lane. There's the Gangplank Vedius, so strong into that Ornn. Chachi not wanting to go for the full counter matchup with the Alawi, and Zilean is a pick we've seen Kasing use in the Challenger Series as a support, so this is a possibility for Splyce.
Yeah, I'd actually love to see something like a Brand here, or even a Xerxe, and just go for a full-on poke siege kind of bottom lane. I think that it would fit into Kasing's playstyle and could work very nicely with the composition that they have drafted, but instead, he's going to stick with a bit of a comfort pick and something that I've seen him play multiple times in solo queue with the Zilean. Great in terms of defending some of the pick potential. I think it's going to be a little weird in this composition, but we'll have to see how things work out and track how he interacts in this game.
So we'll have a look at that bot lane as we get into the game, but I want to have a look at the teams as a whole here. What we tend to look for is, do they have engage? Do they have wave clear? Do they have a scaling composition? Schalke definitely have all of those. You've got the Jarvan for the engage, you've got wave clear in the Azir and Gangplank, and you've got scaling in those carries as well. Splyce seems to have a little bit of a mix. You've got the Veigar, who scales incredibly well. I'd like to see him take the Gathering Storm. Caitlyn, who scales and engage from Zac and Ornn. So both teams seem to have filled most of the criteria you want from a composition.
Both have scaling, both have an ability to team fight, both have engage. This dramatic music is setting up nicely for what I imagine will be a lot of team fighting in this game. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I can see. The big disparity is Caitlyn will have an outscale advantage on the Varus in the late game, but Gangplank going for that crit build later on into the game is gonna be able to do a lot more damage than Ornn will. Whereas Ornn will make up for that in terms of utility. The only slight edge I would give is the Veigar over the Azir in terms of straight up burst, but Azir so reliable in terms of consistent damage. So both comps I think have good scaling, really good ways to fight. I think we're in for a lot of team fighting later on.
Later on is what I was waiting for there, Vedius. I think the early game might be a little bit more about the junglers trying to find a few ganks, maybe just farming up to get towards those level 6. And then we will start to see fights as the game progresses. But I know that we're going to see some action in this matchup. Vedius has promised it to me, and I believe everything he says. Let's get on to the Summoner's Rift. It's Schalke 04 up against Splyce. So this mid lane matchup, Vedius, it's a Veigar into an Azir.
Yeah.
You said Veigar struggles a little bit in the lane.
A lot. He struggles a lot.
Why?
Because he has no wave clear medic. His Q is so pathetic at early levels. It's literally like throwing a tennis ball at the minions. And Azir, he's going to summon his soldiers to do all of the work for him. So he's going to have a lot of pushing power onto Nisqy in the early game. And we've talked so much about how Nisqy struggles during the laning phase. This is not really the kind of matchup you want to be putting him in, given the dominance that NukeDuck has been able to exert over so many other mid laners in the past. Now, the thing is, for Nisqy, he is going for the unsealed spellbook, which means he's very likely going to swap to a TP. He's going to farm, expend a lot of mana, and then go back to base, and then pick up a lot the early mana thing that I always forget the name of. Building towards the Morellonomicon.
Last chapter.
The last chapter, that's the Badger. And it's going to give him a bit of extra mana, and it's just going to help him during the laning phase. So Nisqy, I think, he will struggle during the laning phase, but again, the Event Horizon is just so effective at locking NukeDuck down, or locking the Azir down, rather, because of the typical low range that the Azir will have when he's getting into the thick of things and when he really wants to trade.
Xerxe starting off towards the top side of his jungle at that red buff. Could look for a full clear, could look for early ganks towards the mid lane as well, and you can see NukeDuck knows that. This is why he's rated as the best mid laner in EU. He knows that he might get ganked, so he gets that ward in early to spot out Zac.
Okay, the ward. I can agree with that. That's fair. You were pointing at the cleanse, and I was like, wait, are you saying that he's the best mid laner because he thought to took cleanse against the Veigar? That's a lot of praise. I'm saying that is a lot of praise.
Also, they can't see me pointing.
That's true.
You could point anywhere on the screen, they wouldn't know.
They wouldn't.
Could be pointing at Kasing, making points about NukeDuck.
Do you want to talk about Kasing?
No, I want to talk about NukeDuck.
Go, hit me up.
He is rated as one of the best mid laners by everyone else, and it comes out in his numbers as well. So aggressive early on, has a huge amount of jungle pressure as well. I'm not going to call it help, because I don't think he needs the help, but Pride is willing to spend some time here to get NukeDuck ahead.
Oh, he certainly is. That forward percentage is what really impresses me. Look at how often he spends sitting in front of his enemies, harassing as often as possible, basically trying to be a nuisance. And because of the amount of jungle pressure he gets, he is free to play in this way. That is why he has such a significant CS advantage over so many of his lane opponents.
Now we can talk about bot.
Okay, let's talk about the bottom lane.
So, Kasing on this Zilean, paired up with a Caitlyn, seems to have the push advantage at the moment in this lane.
What would give you that indication, Vedius?
Because they're pushing in, Vedius.
Well, great observational skills.
It's a play-by-play skill right
They
there.
have a lot of pushing power, a lot of wave clear from the Caitlyn, along with the harassment coming out from the Zilean. You can see that it can be quite mana intensive. This isn't the first Zilean support that we have seen. It did come out over in the Academy League in North America. It was, again, picked into the Tahm Kench, and it does feel like it is something that we have seen also over in Korea and in some of the other regions around the world. Over in North America, they've even been picking it in the mid lane as an answer to Malzahar. So we have seen a bit of Zilean. It has been used as an answer to the Tahm Kench, and you can see in terms of the ultimate, it's going to be extremely effective in helping out with the late game team fighting from Splyce, especially if they're able to lock down someone like a low mobility Veigar, and then you can bring him back pretty much to full health, and then he can drop all that extra damage in CC and be basically everything.
Nisqy has backed off early, he's teleported back into the lane, and has got himself a Spell Thief's Edge alongside a Control Ward.
Interesting.
Does give you some mana back, of course. Works as basically a lost chapter, but a bit earlier in the laning phase.
So the thing about the support itemization that we do see on a couple of mid laners, we might have to wait on that because I do see a jungler looming in the top lane.
Xerxe on the Zac, looking for the jump on Chachi, who will jump away. Former teammates. And Chachi respects Xerxe's jungle presence.
That knockup was risky, but now Pride coming for his gang.
Onto Nisqy gets the knockup. Nisqy hasn't flashed away, will use it. And Pride realizes he can't go any deeper for that fight.
And Xerxe, he's not done yet though. No flash onto Chachi. Remember, because of Xerxe's passive, good diving jungler from Xerxe.
Oda has Ignite as well, will pop it, and Chachi's gonna go down. Teammate be teammate, Xerxe takes the win. And Splyce go 1-0 up.
Nice from Xerxe investing towards the top side. This is not something that we've seen a huge amount from, but now is paying off for Splyce. The roaring Romanian duo, as Quickshot would love to say. This is a great start, set up Odoamne for success, put this Gangplank behind, where during the early game is the easiest time to punish him, especially before he has that stopwatch available.
Have to see if Xerxe wants to go back there time and time again, because Odo still has Flash. Has switched to the teleport now as well. Did take the Ignite as that aggressive summoner earlier on. And there was a bit of banter between these guys on Twitter beforehand, both of them respecting each other a lot, but you can tell that Xerxe is kind of in the mind of Vizicsacsi here. He knows how this guy plays. They were on a team for quite a long time together as well, so if I'm Chachi now, I'm a little bit nervous that Xerxe is just going to come back for another game.
I'd love to see a repeat gank from Xerxe, especially once it gets to level 6. Ornn still does a lot of damage. Reminder, we are playing on patch 8.1, so the unstoppable nerf hasn't quite come in yet. Very effective champion, can mitigate a decent amount of CC, but with the Gangplank ultimate available and stopwatch now up, diving Chachi does become a lot harder. So we'll have to see what the decision making is from Xerxe. His eyes are around the mid lane, and Kasing is roaming with him as well.
NukeDuck still has the cleanse and the flash and can of course shuffle his way away. It looks like Kasing is just going to try and clear out some vision control. Xerxe getting some deep wards in as well. This is better stuff from Splyce. They haven't really been the most coordinated team thus far in the EU LCS, but they get first blood. They have a small gold lead, about 100 gold ahead. Yep. And they're looking okay.
Yeah, the laning phase is looking good. Reminder that their composition does scale very nicely. The Caitlyn doing very well in the laning phase alongside the Zilean. And Nisqy holding his own against NukeDuck for the time being. Even after a gank, you can see that the farm actually isn't that far apart. If I was a Veigar, I would be very happy with how this laning phase is going. But also, you asked a little while ago about this support itemization in the mid, then we had the root gank up top lane, so Xerxe interrupted us. What I find fascinating about this, typically you build it when you can proc it quite easily and get that extra influx of gold, which is very valuable for Veigar, because he is scaling, he wants to get those items as quickly as possible. But mainly, it's when you complete the quest and you get that many Storm Raiders, that bonus movement speed. That is very useful on a mid laner that doesn't have that much mobility. We see it also on Malzahar because of how effectively he can proc it during the laning phase and how valuable that move speed is later on. So I think the itemization pickup is smart. I think it will help him later on into the game. And also, you get spooky ghosts, so it helps set up for that event horizon as well if he's able to land that stuff.
I mean, pretty scary when a Veigar is chasing you with those spooky ghosts active. Looks like Pride has spent quite a lot of time towards NukeDuck. It's what we expected to see. We saw that high jungle proximity. Pride and NukeDuck tend to work together quite a lot, but haven't been able to find anything out of that original gank. Nisqy's flash is about to come back up as well, that unsealed spellbook giving him a bit more cooldown on the flash. So, although the mid lane has tended to be the focus for Schalke 04 across the last few games, here it is very even between these two teams.
They've also got an early Cloud Drake, so feel like these teams aren't going to put a high amount of value on getting it early on. Odo has just used his teleport, which means that with Nisqy's TP also being down, one option for Schalke is to try and look for a play bot side. There is only the stopwatch on Kasing, but he will be nearing that level 6 mark. And remember, his ultimate can act like a stopwatch, providing that revival to Kobbe as well. But it is a consideration, something for Schalke to potentially play around. Push in mid, have the Gangplank ultimate sent down bot, and then have some kind of a play towards that tower, or maybe even secure themselves a Drake. A couple of options available for Schalke.
We did say both these teams are likely to be willing to play a more passive early game, scale it up a little bit. Xerxe trying to turn that one around as he jumps on towards Pride. Can't get the let's bounce back. Pride did have to flash away. Nisqy looking for the event horizon, and NukeDuck is caught in the walls of the cage, but Nisqy unable to get more damage down with that primordial burst.
Given that we are casting over a Veigar, we have to play the fun mini game of how many stacks does he have. Right now he's on 56. Admirable for an early game, but it can result in some obscene numbers with regards to his ability power, and it's something that will only get scarier as the game progresses. In the meantime, laners continue to farm.
And Nisqy is a player who has been around in the scene for quite a long time. Played in North America for Team Envious in summer of last year, and did not struggle as much as he has been struggling in the EU LCS. Perhaps he's just getting used to the nerves, the jet lag hitting in, you never know.
Those EU mids, man, you know, it can be challenging. Ooh, ulti Darius down in the bottom lane.
Chain of Corruption onto Kasing. He's going to flash away, and Vander was exhausted as well. Kobbe just trying to put the damage in from the side, and Xerxe's on his way down here as well, looking for the elastic slingshot. Does get the connection, but the Devour comes out from Vander, perfectly timed to keep Upset alive. They did have to use heal, but Splyce unable to catch out anyone there.
So I'm going to spell advantage gained, though, for Schalke. The thing about Zilean is it is quite a squishy champion, so going for that all-in, especially when he's such low on mana, will allow you to force him back, get a couple summoner spells out, and now Vander just being obnoxious. The Schalke bottom lane has a slight deficit, but still fairly happy for the time being.
As a support, that's what you have to do. I'm a support main, and when I see my enemy support backing, it's not about killing him. It's not about doing anything. It's about sending a message, man. It's just like, no, I refuse to allow you to back when you want to. You have to stay around for that little bit longer, so we can try and get the push in towards your tower.
You want to say that, hey, I know you've been poking me for the entire laning phase, but now I will return the favor. Speaking of poking,
I am the poker now.
I am the poker now. So NukeDuck going to be sending the same message over to Nisqy. Early game, very much what we expected. Low in kills, high in farm, everyone waiting for those kind of item spikes. Eyes on Pride, also hanging around the middle lane. So we already talked about how he loves to hang around that middle lane, set up NukeDuck for success, allow him to play his forward aggressive style, and we seem to see a continuation of that.
And something that allows NukeDuck to push forward is the ward control that they have. You've got a couple of wards in that blue side jungle. You've got control wards in the river as well, just trying to spot out Xerxe as he comes in for these long-range ganks. It's something that Pride has definitely upped his game in, because when he came into the EU LCS last split, he wasn't known as a strong macro play jungler. He was a mechanically proficient jungler.
He made some very silly mistakes, face-checking areas of the jungle where he had no control over, taking weird gang paths that often got regularly punished. Pride did not have the best first split, but towards the end, on Rockat, he definitely started to show some possibilities, some good stuff. Now that he's on Schalke, an experienced lineup with some veteran coaching staff to help him grow. All I've heard is about how he is getting better and better every week, how he's developing as an individual. And right now, we haven't seen a huge amount from him, but we are still very early into the game. And we have to go across to the other jungler too, because Xerxe, we talked a lot about how it would be great to see where he paths, see if he invests more time in the top lane, but for the time being, he's actually has his eyes set on this bottom tower.
Tower down to about a quarter HP as well, so if Splyce can use their pushing lane, use the advantage they have with the Caitlyn and Zilean early on, and maybe get the first tower of the game, that would be very beneficial to them. Pride and Xerxe just butting heads in the jungle, but nothing's really going to come of that. And 13 minutes in, game's basically even. 200 gold in it, a slight CS advantage in some of the lanes, but it's even out across the board. Here comes Xerxe with the elastic slingshot. The chain of corruption's already used. The stretching strike will knock them back, and the let's bounce brings back Vander, and he's caught in the midst of 4 members of Splyce. Nisqy gets the kill. It's the second one of the game.
Good roam down from Nisqy and Xerxe. With the knowledge of where Pride was, recognized that he could get to the lane first and force the play. Gets themselves another kill. Splyce, slight lead in the early game, but definitely a strong performance compared to what we've seen from this roster so far.
It's a very strong performance from them. Schalke, I think, were one of the teams coming into today that you say should be able to compete against Splyce, should be able to push them back, but Splyce with a good, strong draft, has this pushing lane in the bot lane, has Nisqy playing pretty even in that mid lane as well when we expected him to fall behind against NukeDuck, and a lot of that comes towards Splyce maybe coordinating a little bit better today.
Now Vander, he moves a little too forward in the lane, allowing Kasing to get that double stun off. This forces him to use a very early flash, and with the arrival of Xerxe, it becomes very easy to then drag Vander back into the team and allow Nisqy to pick up that early kill, which is crucial for the Veigar. You can now see the Frost Queen's Claim has been completed. He becomes a bit more of a threat for NukeDuck now because he is relatively low, and one ulti could change his life from a living Emperor to a dead one.
Up next is the match of the week. Fnatic taking on G2, the clash of kings. May not be sitting at the top of the throne at the moment, but these guys have consistently shown us that they are some of the best players in Europe. Splyce trying to show us that at the moment as well. This is probably the strongest performance we have seen from them thus far. They did do well against Fnatic in the mid game as well. And Schalke just don't seem to have an answer to the pressure that Splyce are putting them under.
Splyce just continuing with the strong laners down in the bottom lane. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a TP from Odo relatively soon to try and force something down bot. However, they don't really need to because that tower is just going to go down eventually. Notice again, very little priority on the Drake. The Pride hanging around middle lane. Maybe they want to try and get a collapse onto Nisqy, but he's just playing so far back. He knows he doesn't have to go anywhere near that Azir. All he cares about is the farm.
When you have that Dark Matter as well, you can start to clear out that back wave from a long way away. The big pillar of death that comes down. How long are Splyce willing to wait here? They do have the longest average game time of any European team, just like 51 minutes, I believe. Are they willing just to wait this one out?
As long as it takes, baby.
Yeah.
That's what they're waiting for. An opportunity to strike.
So they're waiting for Schalke to make a misplay, to make a mistake.
Perhaps. I mean, there's a lot of options right now. It looks like Xerxe's going on to NukeDuck, but will quickly dissuade from that action.
And again, we see just a little bit of pressure put around the mid lane. It's a game of vision. And
I love the fact that Nisqy's running the Gandalf skin, you know, because every time you try to get a ward, you shall not pass. You know, he's just going to stand there, stop them from getting any kind of follow-up. Now we see the two junglers butting heads once again.
who's the Balrog in that situation? Who is he actually stopping?
I wasn't going to go that deep into it.
Gandalf also dies when he says that, so it's probably not the best metaphor.
Spoiler alert, he evolves.
Oh, sorry guys, if you haven't watched or read Lord of the Rings, I apologize.
Yeah, come on, man. He's a pretty significant character. You don't want to ruin all the plot that early
Maybe he comes back, you never know.
Maybe. Perhaps riding a stallion. Wouldn't that be magnificent?
Oh, no. That would just be bad writing, really.
It would be.
You write a character out and then you bring them back. It's just
wouldn't it be so
unbelievable
weird if he just
Vedius.
suddenly appeared above a mountain with an army behind him? How crazy would that be?
It's just not realistic at all.
Not realistic at all. Anyway, what could be realistic is the death of Nisqy, not Gandalf.
But he's okay for the time.
Yeah, he's fine. He's just clearing out some wards. Don't know why he's allowed to do this, given that there are two members of Schalke right there.
Looks like they're going to go down towards the bottom lane again. It's Schalke maybe pulling the trigger on trying to take this tower. They will force them back. Splyce doing a good job. TP is available for Vizicsacsi and Odoamne, though. He's gone towards mid to try and stop NukeDuck. And Vander and Upsetter here with the Abyssal Voyage. They knock back the Ornn, but a good double knock-up. Here comes the call of the Forge God as well. But it's suppressed and taken down. Schalke get their first kill. Nisqy's here to join the fight. Tower goes down in the bot lane, but let's look up towards the mid as well, because the tower's going to fall in favor of Schalke North Fit.
So Odo, he tries to defend the mid lane tower, but NukeDuck recognizes that he can get a punish here. He knocks him back into the team of Vander and Upset. Schalke, they should be in a good position to take themselves their second tower of the game as well, because Odo's still going to be dead for a while. His TP, he's not going to come back alive soon enough in order for Splyce to TP up to the top lane.
And as much as we were focusing on that bottom lane and when that tower would go down, Schalke have been able to put pressure on the top, pressure in the mid, and get 2 towers for themselves.
So we can see here, NukeDuck knows that his bottom lane is arriving. Very clutch ultimate, just barely knocks Odoamne back. Vander also blocking Odoamne and preventing him from getting that dash out. And that means that... Actually, I believe he must have used his pillar there as well, because otherwise he wouldn't have landed that knock-up. So quite fascinating that Odoamne kind of hurt himself by trying to get out of that situation, but he
could have connected into the Azir wall as well.
Also
I'm not sure of that interaction, so that could have been what happened.
He does break walls, but I think the Azir wall was a little far away, so I'm sure there are some analysts out there that will be able to properly break that down. Regardless, Odo died, and Schalke, they got themselves 2 kills.
And they're 1,000 gold ahead now as well. Let's have a quick look across items here, Vedius. It's Abyssal Mask after the Frost Queen's claim for Nisqy, and an Ardent Sensor on Kasing on this Zilean as well.
Looks like they're heavily investing in the hyper carry kind of build for Caitlyn. That's what you see from a lot of range supports, things like the Redemption, the Locket, also likely to come out from Kasing as well. Not the kind of solo queue, full AP Zileans that often torment your games, but for some reason do a surprising amount of damage. Abyssal Mask now also completed for Nisqy, so he's going to be building up a bit of resistances, and it will combine nicely with the amount of magic damage that is actually on the side of Splyce too. So I do quite like the pickup. And again, we have to recognize that he is doing very well on farm, considering how difficult this matchup can be for a Veigar. The fact that he's only 10 CS down is admirable. So nice to see Nisqy stepping up as an engage happens mid.
Devour once again from Vander on upset, keeps his AD carry alive, and that's the power of the Tahm Kench pick. Even when Splyce invests so many resources into getting on towards that AD carry, he can just be devoured and taken out of the fight. Schalke 04 with a 1,000 gold lead now. Coming up to that 20-minute mark, it seemed like Splyce's game early on, but across the board, it's still incredibly even.
So I just had a whisper in my ear that I need to clarify that Azir wall cannot in fact be broken by the Ornn E. But the knock-up stand can still take place, so we need to make sure that our information is correct. And while we can still see that interaction, what it can break is the Jarvan wall. That yes. I'm very confident on. So walls can be broken this game.
Just breaking down barriers, Vedius.
Exactly that.
From you. The Schalke will be breaking down this Cloud Drake as well as they get the first dragon of the game. And they're getting a bit more control now because they are able to step up as 3 or 4 members in towards these objective positions.
And now we're approaching the dance of the purple worm. Very early on, we're likely not going to see
Lord of the Rings.
It could very well be, but it's not something that you immediately rush down, but you start having the vision game, right? You start playing towards getting control over the river. Then once you have that pressure, you then start dancing back and forth, trading that vision, and when one team is back as they're trying to restock wards and you're in a good position to force it, that's when you want to try and force your opposition into a bit of a tricky situation. So we'll see that back and forth as both teams reclaim control over the side lanes. For Odo, this is only going to get harder and harder as the Gangplank now completed the Trinity Force, Last Whisper done as well. He has a lot of wave clear with that completed, with the barrels, and Odo's just going to have to keep playing on the back foot. He's going to be constantly forced underneath this tower that is still remaining.
And Odo is a player who's struggled quite a bit on Splyce thus far. The only time they got a win, he went 0-6 by the 50-minute mark, ended the game 2-8-4. It was a very rough game. Hasn't really had the performance perhaps we would have expected from a top EU top laner.
I'm sure expectations are not quite where he's happy with either, but so far he's holding his own. No severe deficit aside from that mid lane misplay. Now, Xerxe engaging once again.
Doesn't land the stretching strike, and you can see Schalke realize they can turn back a little bit of damage. Odo is on his way up, but spotted on a control ward, which he now realizes is there as well. And we talk about the Baron dance, we talk about vision control, Vedius. Either of these teams more adept at getting control of the vision, more speedy at taking a Baron?
in terms of Baron taking speed, I would give the advantage ever so slightly to Schalke, mainly because they have 3 carries and they have the Azir and Veigar, not the fastest Baron taking champions, so ever so slight advantage going over to them. And now they're going for a collapse onto Nisqy, pop the Ghost.
Lands a double stun with the Event Horizon. There are the spooky ghosts as well. Upset tries to land with the Chain of Corruption, but Nisqy with the sidestep flashes away another Event Horizon. They will force them back. That's great stuff from Nisqy, and Xerxe wants to come into this party as well. Just forces Schalke back. Nisqy did have to burn both of his summoners there.
Considering that was a good collapse from Schalke, the fact that Nisqy was able to get away is impressive in its own right. He doesn't lose his life, but yes, as you said, a lot of summoner spells burnt. This will hurt him in upcoming team fights, where Schalke definitely have that summoner spell advantage. He's now going to go back to base. Schalke return to mid as they reclaim control. They want to have that pushing wave so they can then move back towards the Baron and reclaim control over the river.
We're starting to get towards the mid to late game Vedius. You never know how late the game's going to go with Splyce, of course, but 2 items finished on both of these AD carries. Kobbe with the Infinity Edge and the Static Shiv. Teleport cancelled out there. Upset has the Gwynsu's Rage Blade and the Wit's End as well. But you have to remember, Kobbe has an Ardent Sensor to help buff him up as well.
So this is now going to get even trickier for Splyce, because Odo used the TP to perhaps try and force a fight there, but Splyce didn't quite get the optimal setup that they wanted, and now Xerxe will have that TP advantage over Splyce, which means that they're in a much better position to force something. Good ult though.
Oh, great stopwatch though from Upset. Vander's the one pulled back with the Let's Bounce. Primordial Burst comes out on him as well, and the Tahm Kench will fall. Teleport coming in from Vizicsacsi. He's looking for some bounce from the side. Doesn't land the connection. And Splyce just get 1 kill. Looks like Odoamne is on his way up as well as Splyce continue to push forward. There's Upset, there's the ace in the hole, and there's a dead AD carry. Splyce capitalize on the fact that Vander's dead and get themselves their 4th kill of the game.
Splyce finding pick after pick right now. They secure themselves their 3rd and final outer tower. Still slightly behind in gold, but I love seeing this proactivity from Splyce. Finally coordinating a couple of good team fight setups that are going in their favor. And Xerxe just landing the mark multiple times, hitting both Vander and Upset consistently. We saw it in the early game where he went bot lane a lot, was able to get that 1st kill down onto Vander. And now in the mid game, landing a couple of good E's and dragging the rest of the, or dragging more specifically Vander into the rest of the team to get a couple of extra kills.
Xerxe is going to try and trade with Odoamne here, puts down the Cannon Barrage as well. Here's the Call of the Forge God though, looking for the knock-up. Xerxe unable to dodge at the Event Horizon. The flash! Primordial Burst will not take him down. Important to remember, of course, that the Veigar ultimate was changed a little while ago to work off missing HP rather than the AP of the enemy. So when someone's pretty healthy, it doesn't do that much damage.
But let's have a look here. See, Upset forced to use the Zhonya's very early on. He did get stunned, but the focus was onto Vander. The moment he gets dragged back in, he's forced to use the flash. This means that Xerxe can just go for exactly the same play. No dash is available on the Varus. Xerxe lands the knock-up, the follow-up damage from the rest of Splyce, and they're able to secure 2 very quick kills. Kobbe contributing a lot to the output of damage in that fight.
We said that the Caitlyn probably outscales the Varus as we get later on into the game. Helps that the Varus is continually CC'd, of course. You expect Kobbe to put out a little bit more DPS in that sort of case.
And it's really interesting because we've had a lot of discussions in the office. We actually might not have time for that because Baron being rushed here from Schalke.
We said Schalke have a good Baron taking team as well, but Kasing is going to realize it, puts a ward in, has control ward as well. Here's the TP from Odoamne looking for the engage, but the Baron's already gone down. The TP a little bit too late. Nisqy with the Event Horizon will not catch out Upset because Vander's there with the Devour, and here comes the Call of the Forge God. Splyce are not done yet with this fight. Jumping onto NukeDuck, the quick headshot, but the Chain of Corruption will stop them in their tracks, and Schalke get out scot-free.
Incredibly good Baron call there from Schalke. They recognized that Splyce had gone back to base, immediately rushed it down using the Azir and Varus. They didn't lose a single member, and now Xerxe is in a position to get himself the Infernal as well. Xerxe has spotted it, wants to try and stop this, but Schalke with the excellent decision making.
Very good call by them. They will lose the Infernal for it. Splyce will be able to get that for themselves, but now with Baron, you have to think that Schalke have an ability to push forward. They've been hemmed back a little bit into their own side of the map for the last few minutes. Now they have a Gangplank on 4 items. You've got 3.5 items. You've got the Azir scaling up. You've got a scaling up Varus as well, and you've got the safety that a Tahm Kench provides.
I would imagine, but The trickiest thing with scaling against Splyce's composition is the Veigar event horizon. Every time you get too close to the tower, whoop, you've suddenly been stunned, instantly dead. The fact that you can't see where Zach is engaging from. You get close to the tower, whoop, there's a giant blob of blubber on top of my face. And to make it even worse, you've got all these Caitlyn traps littered across the front of you. So what Schalke ideally need to do is play multiple lanes. You can already see that NukeDuck pushing up towards the top, Xerxe pushing down towards the bot, spreading out this Splyce lineup so that they can't just collectively bring their wave clear together and stall this Schalke from sieging onto the base. Because Xerxe, he's very happy to sit off on a side lane. He knows that he will win out over Odoamne, especially with the level advantage that he does have. So let's see how Schalke are able to deal with this 5-man group coming out from Splyce.
Nisqy is now level 16 as well, so has max ranks in that ultimate. Xerxe looking for the engage with the elastic slingshot. He'll jump all the way onto NukeDuck, but the Devour comes down. And Schalke are able to disengage. Xerxe's down towards the bottom side. Will have his TP up before Odoamne, so we have to look, see if he decides to join a fight, but we want to see that split push. We want to see that pressure from the Gangplank. Still not really pushing past that river. They don't have vision control in this blue side jungle. And Xerxe knows it as he steps forward and realizes he needs to back away. Looks like in the mid lane, Xerxe's gone deep as well on towards Pride. Kobbe getting some shots off, but not enough damage to take down the Jarvan, who has a Warmox and the Gargoyle Stone Plate.
So Kench immediately acting as a disengage. But notice again how Splyce grouping up as a 4-man unit, making things very difficult for Schalke to push their Baron advantage. 4,000 gold still in their favor though, largely just because of the farm they've been able to accrue. Xerxe also doing exceptionally well off in the side lane. A lot of back and forth. Ulti lands!
Ulti lands, and they're going to get Kobbe straight away, upset with a great play as they manage to take down the enemy AD Carry.
Kasing doesn't even use the ultimate, doesn't see the point here. Now Schalke have a huge window where they can siege onto the base of Schalke, get themselves, or Splyce rather, have a huge opportunity.
Schalke will be looking for this turret probably down towards the bottom side. NukeDuck had pushed in the top lane. Nisqy had to react, and Schalke capitalized in the moment. Said upset on this Varus does have a lot of damage as the game progresses. Still can't quite get close enough. That event horizon just pinning them back, but they will push towards the turret and get their 4th tower of the game.
So Schalke, even after what was a bit of a kill deficit, they've done a great job of keeping the gold even, playing a patient game, and finally found themselves a pick. Kobbe couldn't flash or heal out from that situation. He ended up losing his life just a little overextended in the mid lane, and Upset able to find the pick that could enable his team the success that they need.
Vedius, there's very much been an ebb and flow in this game. It felt like Splyce is early, Schalke came back, they got the Baron, great call by them, they're now about 4,000 gold in the lead. I'm not sure it's that cut and dry though. I don't think Schalke are going to be able to close it out easily from here because Splyce still scaling, still have an Infernal, have a Veigar as well, who is just getting more and more AP by the minute.
Also remember that one of the big things we said about this Splyce team is that when you get into the late game, they're actually really good at making decisions. They seem to just be, as a unit, excellent at working together and saying, hey, let's do this, immediately the rest of the team follow. Considering how new this roster is, the fact that they're able to work together so effectively in the later stages of the game is definitely a positive for them, and you have to tie it in with the experience that this roster does have, given that they have no rookies on the lineup. So this could play into their favor. I still think that the scaling advantage does go to them ever so slightly in the full 5v5, but we'll have to wait and see. I think these team fights are going to be very exciting to watch if they end up happening, because Schalke right now are just playing multiple lanes. That's
the question. Do we get a full 5v5 at this point? You've got Vizicsacsi, who is ahead of Odoamne, about 40 farm ahead, has that Trinity Force, has a Yumu's, has the Lord Dominix, and the more of Malmortius as well. He is in a very strong spot, and Odoamne can't really counter push against him, can just try and hold the wave every now and again. Feels like Schalke may be just waiting for this next Baron. They've set up vision around it once again, Vedius. They haven't got much deep vision here, though, and it looks like perhaps they're going back. I want to see some control wards picked up on this back.
They've gone back to base, restocked on the wards. See some of the gold across the board. Veigar, even though 30 CS down, actually doing pretty well. The biggest difference really developing between the top laners. Xerxe keeping that gold advantage in favor of Schalke.
And with an Infernal Drake coming up in 40 seconds and the Baron in a minute, You start to see a little bit more spread out on the map. Xerxe jumps in onto Xerxe, but NukeDuck does a good job of zoning. Xerxe looking for the last bounce. Here's the call of the Forge God as well. Brings him back in towards the event horizon, and Pride might be the first to fall. He gets the Cataclysm off, but he doesn't because he's already dead. And Kobbe is looking for some more damage in this fight. Nisqy with another event horizon upset. Stepping forward, NukeDuck now on full health, but Schalke cannot find the avenue to engage.
Splyce, they get themselves a kill onto the engager of Schalke, but they can't commit because Xerxe's engage is on cooldown with nothing for them to follow up on. Along with Odo's ultimate unavailable, Splyce did not feel confident, and even though they get a kill, they still end up losing the Infernal Drake. Oh, but Xerxe is still around. They know there's no smite available.
Well, pings coming off on towards Kobbe as well, but it will just go down towards Schalke. Here's the call of the Forge God onto Upset, and they might be able to get him down, but Vander with the Devour once again. The stretching strike did not connect, and Splyce unable to find the right target. If you can get onto Vander, it feels like you can take down Schalke, but he's been so slippy. NukeDuck forced off towards the side as Kobbe chases in. He's very fast with that time warp, looking for the headshots here as well. NukeDuck tries to get him from the side, and perhaps Kobbe stepped over too far, and the ultimate does go down onto him as well as the Zilean tries to keep him alive. Odoamne unable to find the ball, but he takes a spear to the back, but just about survives, and Xerxe says, I'll take that, thank you very much. Gets himself a kill. Schalke null fair, able to escape.
Oh, Kobbe, he got extremely excited there. He tried to chase down NukeDuck and didn't respect the rest of Schalke being in a position to just collapse on him right around the corner. Instant flash, instant ultimate from Kasing. Odo then tried to follow up on that, and that left him in a dire situation where he was stuck in... Oh, Pride.
In the event horizon, Baron's going to do a bit of work here as well, but Pride should be able to walk away. He's so tanky on that Jarvan, building up towards that Aegis of the Legion. Maybe another Locket alongside Vander's. Healing up with the Warmogs as well. Xerxe jumps in. He's very deep there, quite a way away from his team, and Pride's going to try and capitalize on it. The Let's Bounce brings him back. There's a turret there as Kobbe tanks it up for the time being. The Cataclysm comes out. Xerxe has the Chrono Shift on him, so he'll come back to life. Nisqy looking from the flank here as Splyce have to try and capitalize, but the Goop comes out from the Zac. Here's the TP from Odoamne to try and keep him alive. There's the event horizon. NukeDuck gets Xerxe, and here's the call of the Forge God as Splyce look for the re-engage. Once again, Vander eats Upset and keeps his AD carry out of the fight.
Very questionable engage there from Xerxe. Odo still dead. Wasn't able to TP in the front. Now Nisqy.
Event horizon well placed, but the chase comes all the way around here from Schalke. Primordial Burst is not enough to take down Xerxe through that shield. NukeDuck's going to take an ace in the hole to the back, but he's got the shield for that himself.
Splyce, they end up losing a member. They don't find a successful re-engage. And now...
Do they just go for Baron?
They don't have a jungler, though. That's risky, especially with Pride still hanging around. Splyce, just... We try to praise them for their mid to late game shot calling, and then Xerxe with just a very questionable decision. I like the fact that he is being proactive and that he is jumping into the thick of things and trying to find these picks and catches, but they don't have the members. Look at this. Who's going to follow up on that? There's even a Tahm.
Ooh, the fight has started because Schalke started the Baron, and they will secure it. Call of the Forge God unable to do anything. Kasing have backed away, and Splyce lose their second Baron of the game.
Another clean secure there for Schalke. They extend the goal lead even further.
However, the game continues, Vedius.
Yes.
As the game continues, your Caitlyn gets stronger, your Veigar gets stronger. He's sitting just over 300 stacks on that phenomenal evil power.
Yeah, and we've already seen how difficult it is to siege onto this Splyce roster. So Schalke, they're still going to have their work cut out for them to be able to break into the base. That shield on top of Kobbe is absolutely massive right now. He's going to be one of the primary wave clears, but keep an eye on what he does with those traps. Just lays them down in a lovely line. Schalke try to get close, and that's why Schalke aren't even considering to get close right now, hoping that maybe someone on Splyce makes a bit of a misstep that they can look to punish.
Schalke do have a 6,000 gold lead, still have that Baron. Maybe we'll still look towards that 1-3-1. Xerxe doesn't have teleport, so Xerxe's going for the engage. On towards Vander once again, pulls him back. Call of the Forge God used. The Let's Bounce will pull back the Tahm Kench into the event horizon. Pride tried to engage on towards that backline as Odoamne is the first to fall, and Schalke null there. Just engage perfectly off Xerxe's dive.
Splyce are doing what they can to try and kill Vander very early on to allow them to then turn their attention onto the other carries. But it's just not working out because all this investment going onto the support means that NukeDuck is just chunking through the front line. Odo and Xerxe, they are so they look like paper compared to this Azir. Level 18 to the 17, even 14 of Xerxe. The Splyce lineup is struggling against the team fighting of Schalke.
Trap line down once again, the ace in the hole, AD on AD as Upset does get chunked down and forced away. Turret fell in the top lane though, as Vizicsacsi still looking for this split push. And it's still not quite Schalke's game yet. Splyce have been looking for these engages. Schalke have been doing a very good job of dancing around the event horizons, dancing around Xerxe on the Zac Let's Bounce, but you still feel that all it takes is one good ultimate from Xerxe, one good jump in, and the entire game could turn on its head.
Quite possibly. Kobbe, I love the way in which Zilean is just speeding him up, allowing him to reposition exceptionally quickly, giving him the opportunity to get the most amount of damage output based on where he wants to stand in these team fights. And he's at a point in the game where he is full late game Caitlyn, right? He only needs one item left. You would imagine that he'll either go for something like a Last Whisper into perhaps the Lord Dominic's Regards, or he goes for the QSS and then upgrade that into the Scimitar for a bit more defensiveness. But you can just see that he is outputting a decent amount of damage. He hits the targets that are closest to him, and given that you're Caitlyn, pretty much everything is close to you.
Yet to see those big damage numbers from Nisqy as well. He's approaching 1,000 AP at the moment. He's doing a good job in these fights, positioning and getting the event horizons down, but I've yet to see someone truly get burst out by his ultimate.
That's very true. That is very true. The thing you have to remember about burst mages is usually at the end of the game, their damage isn't that high.
Maybe when you play burst mages.
Maybe when I play burst mages, but we do see now Kobbe being the engage.
Just running at them. Just chase them down. Upset is shielded up and will be fine for the time being. That Guardian Shield does do wonders to keep your AD carry safe. You can see the speed he gets off that time warp, and the Ardent Sense buff now has the Lord Dominic's Regards that we talked about. The Ornn empowered Rabadon's Death Crown has come out as well. Have to remember that as the game goes later, Splyce have an Ornn and can build these extra items that Schalke just don't have access to. NukeDuck! Is there a Zoe in this game? That's the last time I saw damage like that, but Kobbe with a headshot takes out half of NukeDuck's HP.
Big crit there. Kobbe gonna quickly lifesteal all that back up. NukeDuck not quite in the same position, but now we're in the full 5v5. Everyone's running down mid medic, but for Schalke, they're quite happy because look at top and bot. Two big minion waves sieging into the base of Splyce. They want Splyce to go back to base so that Schalke can start off the Elder. The pings are already coming down.
Odo has TP, just switch to it, so he's going to try and push out that top wave. Bot wave is a little bit of a way behind the turret. Kobbe does a good job as getting Pride down. Those crits are absolutely massacring the minions, and Xerxe with the zoning elastic slingshot gets them control over this Baron. Let's see how many wards they've got. 2 control wards on Kasing, 1 normal ward sitting on that Eye of the Watchers. And it means they won't be able to get as much vision control here as they may want. Schalke with a 7,000 gold advantage, but at this point that doesn't really mean a lot because everyone is at his final item builds.
So at this point in the game as well, Kasing has 40% CDR, and his W cooldown, the one that resets the cooldown of his abilities by 10 seconds. Oh, hang on, Xerxe. No. But his W, by reducing the cooldown of his other abilities by 10 seconds, basically means that his E pretty much has a permanent uptime, because it lasts for about 4 to 5 seconds, and then immediately you have the reset and you can keep it up. So Kobbe, so much mobility, going to be so difficult for Schalke to catch.
Splyce start up the Elder Drake. Chachi's in the top lane fighting up against Odo. 4,000 HP on that Elder. Upsets the one to step forward onto Xerxe. They will get the Elder Drake, and Splyce might be able to capitalize because Pride's already dead. Upset gets the Chain of Corruption into the face of Kobbe, but he is Mikhail's, so he is going to run his way towards Upset. He wants to prove he's the better AD carry today. Xerxe with the jump in, cannon barrage, just can't slow them down. Kasing flashes, another time warp, a stretching strike, and Devour keeps Upset alive, but Splyce get the Elder Drake and their inhibitor survives.
So Splyce get themselves the Elder, exactly what they need to keep their hopes alive in this game, even with the monumental gold lead that Schalke have. As you rightly said, Medic, this game never really seemed over because you look at the scaling from Splyce, you look at the composition and you see how difficult it is to siege into this base. Fortunately for Schalke, Chachi was doing work up in the top lane, was able to break into the base and open up the inhibitor, and now this is an avenue that Schalke can play around, but they're going to have to wait for the Elder to disappear.
And with Baron up in 30 seconds as well, you have to feel that Splyce will try and get control of that area now. They've got the Elder Drake, they have the stronger fight. If they engage in this full 5v5, you can get control of the Baron right now and stop Schalke and make them have to react with this teleport from Vizicsacsi.
So we have a look now at this replay. So Pride tries to go in for the steal. It's actually Nisqy that's able to secure it. Does have a decent amount of damage, but surprising amount of burst and able to take that one away from the smite. Then this is where we see the chase coming out from Splyce, and this is really important because Upset now has no summoner spells available, which means that the next time Kobbe wants to run into his face, he's not going to have the easiest of times getting away. And while Vander does have the flash still, it's just another avenue for Splyce to continue to abuse. Now Baron is up. I believe bot lane is slow pushing in the favor of Splyce. He's definitely pushing up in the top lane, so they're just going to have mid control and start this one off. 2-man from Splyce.
Kobbe going to do it from across the wall. Xerxe there as well. The vision does not spot them out. NukeDuck perhaps trying to position for it. 4,000. He doesn't know he's going to back. This is great stuff from Splyce. We saw a good Baron from Schalke earlier on, but Splyce get their own here and have a massive minion wave in this top side as well.
And now we're going to see the siege of this Caitlyn and Veigar come into fruition. The event horizon combined with the long range from Kobbe is going to be so difficult for Schalke to deal with. Let's see if they can find any sort of engage opportunities.
Molten Edge finished on Kobbe alongside that Ardent Sensor, just buffing up this AD carry. Elder Drake still alive on them, just runs out, but they have the Baron. Cannon Barrage trying to clear out that wave. Vizicsacsi is not with the team at the moment as Splyce will break through this inhibitor line. Just needs one more shot from Kobbe and he gets it down now. They can try and push forward, but NukeDuck puts up another turret. Vizicsacsi has not rejoined the fight. Perhaps they're just giving up this inhibitor because Splyce can just look for it here. Schalke no fear decide they don't want to defend. What can Chachi do on the other side of the map here? Because he is on that second inhibitor tower. Call of the Forge God's going to come out as well to try and force him away, but he gets the inhibitor turret.
So, at the very least, Schalke able to trade some objectives. Yes, they lost an inhibitor, but this is kind of the best case scenario for Schalke, as Splyce now grouping up in the middle lane. Odoamne does have the TP, can follow soon.
Chachi did have to burn Flash there to get away from the call of the Forge God, so it looks like he's not going to try and continue splitting. He's going to come back to the team, defend this mid lane inhibitor. Xerxe winds up an elastic slingshot. Kobbe steps forward. Headshots, of course, do proc on towers now, so you can get a little bit more damage in these siege situations. And this is why you never count Splyce out there. Late game decision making, their reactionary shot calling is exemplary. And Chain of Corruption from Upset as he pushes forward onto Xerxe. Chachi on the flank trying to get in here, but met by the Forge God himself. Odoamne has had an impeccable performance in dealing with Vizicsacsi here.
Remember, top lane is pushing in favor of Splyce. There are no Baron and Pad minions, but the 5-man roster of Splyce is in the mid. Schalke doing what they can to clear, but the range on Kobbe, along with the call of Forge God.
Cannon Barrage comes out with the inhibitor tower already, falls in event horizon to zone out NukeDuck. Vizicsacsi trying to get in from the side, but Schalke, Null Fear, just can't find the correct approach, and Kobbe's going to step forward once again. It's a frontline AD carry. Kobbe being brave, showing courage in the faces of Schalke. Just want to look towards this inhibitor. That push still going on in the top lane, Vedius. Xerxe jumps in, trying to get on Vander. Upset takes a crit as well, but he'll turn this back on towards Xerxe. That Varus can do a lot of work in the late fights of the game. Redemption comes out. Splyce managed to escape another crit on towards Vizicsacsi. Xerxe's going to try and heal up.
The thing is, yes, Xerxe took a lot of damage, but thanks to the Warmogs, he's just going to get all that HP up, and then he can just rejoin the fight. So Splyce, they're not afraid.
Kobbe, but he just gets out with the Makaros. Great stuff from Kasing once again. He's been on point with the Zilean pick.
So Splyce feeling confident now. They have taken 2 inhibitors away from Schalke. And while Schalke have held on to the gold lead for the vast majority of this game, their composition has given them limited options. Typically, you would associate the Azir with such a strong siege, but we're seeing more of the value that this Azir, or that the Veigar does as a counter pick. Every time you get close to that tower, boom, event horizon out. The risk of getting caught out of position is just so lethal that Schalke cannot get anywhere near those towers.
And we were so worried for Nisqy coming into this game. We said against NukeDuck, against this guy who's one of the best mids in EU, Nisqy's going to struggle. He's struggled in every matchup thus far, but he played the lane well. He's now got to the late game. He's over 1,000 AP on this Veigar. performing a lot better than perhaps we expected him to.
Certainly is, and for Kobbe, he's now reached the full late game. He's sold away his boots. His base movement
Doesn't need the movement speed.
Exactly that. Because he's paired up with Kasing, he gets all that extra movement speed. His base also is just 383 right now, which isn't even that bad. But let's see, Call of Forge got zoning ultimate here to keep... Ooh, upset.
Xerxe's going to jump in on towards Vander as well, tries to get the stretching strike out. The chain of corruption is going to come back on towards him, but remember, Zilean has the ult. There's the last bounce boots pied back. They're jumping on towards Nisqy. The engage from Splyce is superb as they get one kill. Upset's dead. Pride getting chased. Kobbe's on the front line. Goodbye, Schalke not there as Kobbe shreds through. You gets the quadra. It's going to be a big shot for Kobbe.
The man, the myth, the legend, Kobbe gets himself the Panther. The Zilean working wonders. Who needs boots when you have the damage? Splyce going to be taking a win against Schalke.
What a way to end the game. The first penta of this split of the EU LCS. And Splyce will get their second win.
Kasing was just laughing at the end of that as he watched Kobbe. I didn't even see how he killed Upset.
Headshots.
I was just watching him like, wow, Upset's at the back of the fight. How is he pulling this off? He crit so hard in the late game. This was the scaling we were talking about. This is why we were looking at this roster or this composition and thinking, for Schalke, they had a great early game, they had a solid lead, but when it came to just breaking the pace, they could not pull it off. Splyce were able to stall out. They did what they have done so far. They played towards the late game, and they found a convincing fight to win the game.
That they did. Superb stuff by Splyce, and what a morale boost it must be for them as well. Didn't hit the ground running in week one, struggled in their game versus Fnatic and against Unicorns, and now beating Schalke will be something that gives them and their fans a little bit more hope coming into the rest of the split.
On the analyst desk, all wrong. 100% prediction on the Schalke. And again, we want to echo, Schalke did not play this game badly. They had a strong early game. They were sitting on an 8,000 gold lead. They had a lot of very intelligent Barons, which they were able to sneak away from Splyce. But their composition made it so difficult for them to end the game. They couldn't quite effectively play the 1-3-1. And then Splyce, they finally found that late game fight. They finally found a couple of those picks. And then once they got the Baron, oh, their siege was just unstoppable.
Great stuff by them, and great stuff by Kobbe and Kasing in that bottom lane as well. We wondered if they'd mesh the last remaining member of Splyce from last split. Kobbe did over 50% of his team's damage that game. I think it was about 52%. That's just incredible. On a Caitlyn late game, you said that burst mages don't do as much, but I expected the Veigar to be up there as well, because Nisqy played almost impeccably on that mid lane.
I believe he did not die that game. So,
what a turn up for him.
Yeah, we thought that he did well during the laning phase too. We thought that his contribution in teamfights was great, and it's nice to see him step up for Splyce after what was a tough couple of weeks. So, good things to say about both teams, but I'm sure that Splyce are extremely happy about finally getting themselves another win.
And Schalke perhaps a little bit disappointed, because there were avenues that they could capitalize on. I want to bring attention to Pride. I don't think he did as much in the early game as perhaps he could have done on that Jarvan.
He spent a lot of time around the middle lane. They weren't able to really get a number of kills onto Nisqy based on how defensive that he was playing during the laning phase. But when you think about the time that was invested there, perhaps he wanted to go up towards the top side. Maybe he wanted to relieve some of the pressure down bot. But overall, Schalke, it was pretty solid, but Splyce netted themselves the win.
And that will do it from us for now. Let's head over to Law and hear from Splyce's top laner.
Thank you very much, Medic. I'm standing here with Odoamne after their win against Schalke. Thank you very much for joining me after the game. I mean, you must feel really well after this win. Were you expecting to beat the team?
I was expecting to do better this week. I thought we were going to win against Rocket just because we fixed a lot of our issues from the first week, and scrims were looking really well for us this week. But against Rocket, it didn't really go so well. But I mean, our confidence was a bit shaken after we lost against them. But we were still kind of confident we can do well against Schalke just because we improved a lot in this week. So I was kind of expecting it. So it didn't really, come as a surprise.
Okay, well, it seems to get better and better after every game. I mean, you're playing with very experienced players this year. Is it hard for you to find your spot within the team?
I wouldn't really say they're experienced, because Nisqy and Xerxe are kind of two new rookies that they need to learn a lot, and it's kind of difficult to personally and as a team find our footing in this meta, just because it's kind of a mid jungle meta. It's them two are like the biggest playmakers, so it's hard now at the beginning because we're a new team and we need some time to kind of get our synergy together and kind of teach them the plays that they need to do to kind of control the map. So that's why it was kind of hard for us to pick up wins and play well in the first week, just because we weren't really familiar with the plays to how to play with them together as a duo. So yeah, with time that's gonna get fixed. But yeah, I mean that's been kind of a big issue for me too, why I've been playing so poorly this split so far, just because we don't really have an identity yet. So it's kind of hard for me to establish myself with a play style, and kind of just trying to give more experience for myself and more knowledge for myself towards the others, just because they don't know as many plays as I do. Because yeah, Prolly's has been an amazing coach, so he kind of taught me a lot. So I'm trying to kind of pass that along, and so far I'm kind of struggling in a way, just because I can't really find my footing.
Well, it's still the beginning of the split. I mean, you still have time to improve. Once again, congratulations with this victory today.
Thank you.
We are going to head up to pause, and right after this, it will be Fnatic versus G2. Don't go anywhere.
I know that we're going to see some action.
Because Xerxe's passive, good diving